In the early hours of April the 5th, 1923, in a hotel room in Cairo, Lord Carnarvon, the man who funded the discovery of King Tut's tomb, died suddenly from a raging fever. At the precise moment he drew his last breath, a mysterious power outage plunged the entire city of Cairo into absolute darkness. Miles away, back at his family's castle in England, Carnarvon's beloved terrier Susie let out a single, mournful howl and then dropped dead. The conclusion was inescapable. The newspapers screamed it in headlines across the globe. The curse of the Pharaohs was real, but the truth of what killed Lord Carnarvon wasn't a supernatural curse. It was something far stranger and far more real. But to understand the curse, we must first understand the discovery. Our story begins here, in the Valley of the Kings, the ancient graveyard of Egypt's gods and pharaohs. By the early 20th century, archaeologists believed the valley had given up all its secrets. For over 100 years, it had been systematically explored, mapped, and plundered. The consensus was clear: the valley was empty, a treasure chest picked clean by millennia of tomb robbers. But one man refused to believe it. Howard Carter was a meticulous, stubborn, and deeply obsessive English archaeologist. He was risking his entire career on a single, improbable theory: that the tomb of a minor, forgotten boy king named Tutankhamun still lay hidden beneath the rubble. His quest was funded by a man who was his opposite in every way: the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, a wealthy, thrill-seeking aristocrat. A lover of fast cars and high-stakes gambling, Carnarvon saw Carter's obsessive hunt as the ultimate adventure, a final roll of the dice. For 5 long, frustrating seasons, their partnership yielded nothing. They moved tens of thousands of tons of rock and sand under the relentless Egyptian sun. Season after season, they found only broken pottery and the ghosts of long-gone robbers. The money was running out, and the archaeological world was beginning to view Carter as a fool chasing a fantasy. In the summer of 1922, a defeated Lord Carnarvon summoned Carter back to his castle in England and told him the dream was over. The search was too expensive, the results non-existent. But Carter, with all his obsessive passion, made one final plea. He begged for one last season, even offering to fund it himself. Moved by his friend's determination, Carnarvon agreed. They would try one more time. The stakes were now absolute. On November the 4th, 1922, their gamble paid off. A young water boy on the crew stumbled, and in clearing the sand, he found it. A single step cut into the bedrock. Carter's team worked with a frantic energy, clearing the sand to reveal a full, sunken staircase leading down to a sealed doorway, stamped with the unbroken seals of the royal necropolis. After years of failure, they were standing at the entrance to a pristine, untouched pharaoh's tomb. With Carnarvon at his side, Carter drilled a small hole in the ancient door. He held up a candle, its flame flickering in the stale, 3,000-year-old air, and peered inside. "Can you see anything?" Carnarvon asked, his voice trembling with impatience. For a long moment, Carter was silent, struck dumb by the sight. He turned, his eyes wide with an emotion that was part awe and part something else, a deep, unsettling dread. He simply said, "Yes, wonderful things." The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was the biggest news story on the planet. For months, the world watched as Howard Carter and his team meticulously catalogued the thousands of priceless artifacts from the antechamber. But the greatest prize, the burial chamber of the king himself, remained sealed. Finally, in February 1923, before a crowd of assembled press and dignitaries, Carter broke down the final doorway. The public held its breath, waiting to see the face of the boy king. But what they would get was a story far darker and far more sensational. The question that would soon grip the world was, what happened to Lord Carnarvon, the first man to look upon the treasure? The chain of events began with something trivial, a mosquito bite on his cheek. A few weeks later, back in his hotel in Cairo, he was shaving and accidentally sliced the bite open with his razor. The small cut became infected. Within days, he was gripped by a raging fever. The infection spread, leading to blood poisoning, and finally, a fatal bout of pneumonia. On April the 5th, 1923, just 4 months after entering the tomb, Lord Carnarvon was dead. The official cause was clear, but the public, now obsessed with the mysteries of ancient Egypt, was not interested in a mundane explanation. The media created a legend. They reported that at the moment of his death, all the lights in Cairo had mysteriously gone out. They printed stunning reports that back in England, his dog let out a final mournful howl and dropped dead. A tragic but explainable death was transformed into a tale of supernatural vengeance, a story of an ancient pharaoh's magic reaching out from beyond the grave. The legend was born, a perfect story of ancient magic and modern hubris. But the world would soon discover that Lord Carnarvon was only the first name on the mummy's list. The question echoed around the globe. Was Lord Carnarvon the only one to fall victim? As the months turned into years, the world watched, and the newspapers kept a morbid tally. The curse, it seemed, was just getting started. Soon after Carnarvon's death, the wealthy American railroad magnate George J. Gould visited the tomb, eager to see the wonders for himself. The very next day, he was struck by a sudden high fever. He never recovered. Within a few months, he was dead. An Egyptian prince, Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey, was photographed at the tomb with his wife. Just 10 months later, in a fit of rage at the Savoy Hotel in London, his wife shot him dead. The connection was tenuous, but the media didn't care. His name was added to the list. The curse seemed to grow more potent the closer one got to the king himself. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a respected radiologist, was given the honor of X-raying the mummy before it was unwrapped. Weeks later, he complained of a mysterious fatigue and died. One by one, those who had touched the tomb were being struck down. The curse seemed unstoppable, claiming victim after victim. But it had a glaring blind spot. The one man it should have struck down first, the man who physically unwrapped the mummy and spent more time in the tomb than anyone, seemed to be completely immune. So why wasn't Howard Carter dead? He was the curse's prime target. The first to breathe the tomb's ancient air, the man who spent a decade meticulously cataloguing every object, the one who physically lifted the golden mask from the mummy's face. If the pharaoh's magic was real, he should have been its first and most spectacular victim. But Howard Carter did not die. He lived for another 17 years, dying of natural causes in 1939, at the perfectly respectable age of 64. The curse, it seemed, had missed him entirely. And he wasn't the only one. Lord Carnarvon's own daughter, Lady Evelyn Herbert, was one of the very first people to enter the burial chamber alongside Carter. She lived to be 79. The doctor who performed the autopsy on the mummy lived to be 75. In fact, a formal study published in the British Medical Journal analysed the fates of the 25 people most exposed to the so-called curse. Their conclusion? They lived to a perfectly normal average age of 70. The deadly pattern wasn't a pattern at all. It was an illusion created by a powerful quirk of the human mind: confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is our natural tendency to seek out and remember information that confirms what we already want to believe, and to ignore anything that contradicts it. The world wanted to believe in a pharaoh's curse. It was a thrilling, romantic, and terrifying story. So, when a 57-year-old man with a history of poor health died from an infection, it was front-page news. But when the lead archaeologist and dozens of his team members lived long, happy lives, it was quietly ignored. The story was simply too good to let the facts get in the way. So if the curse was just a media myth, were the deaths all just a tragic coincidence? Not quite. Modern science has uncovered a plausible killer, a silent assassin sealed in the tomb for 3,000 years, waiting to be released. The real curse wasn't supernatural. It was biological. To find this biological assassin, we have to stop thinking of the tomb as a treasure chest and start thinking of it as what it really was, a perfectly sealed biological time capsule. For over 3,000 years, nothing got in and nothing got out. The air, the food, the priceless artifacts, and the mummy of the king himself were all left to steep in the absolute darkness. But they weren't alone. They were sealed in with an invisible ecosystem of microscopic life, ancient bacteria, viruses, and most importantly, fungi. Scientists now have a prime suspect for the real curse: toxic mold spores, specifically species like Aspergillus. This is a common mold, but certain strains can be dangerous, especially ancient varieties that have been allowed to grow and concentrate in a sealed environment for thousands of years, sealed in with the funerary offerings, the bread, the plants, the wine. These pathogens entered a state of dormancy, a biological sleep, patiently waiting for the seal to be broken. Now for the second piece of the puzzle: the victim. Lord Carnarvon was not a healthy man. Years before his Egyptian adventure, a severe car accident in Germany had left him with a permanently damaged respiratory system and a severely compromised immune system. He was plagued by chronic, recurring lung infections for the rest of his life. He was, in medical terms, the perfect, vulnerable target. Let's return to that moment of discovery. When Howard Carter made that small hole in the door, the first thing that happened was an exchange of air. The stale, 3,000-year-old atmosphere of the tomb rushed out, carrying with it a massive, concentrated dose of those dormant mold spores. Everyone present would have inhaled them. For a healthy person like Howard Carter, a robust immune system could likely fight it off. But for Lord Carnarvon, with his already damaged lungs, inhaling this microscopic army was a death sentence. An infection known as aspergillosis would have taken root in his lungs, a severe fungal infection that causes the exact symptoms he suffered from: a high, persistent fever and a fatal slide into pneumonia. The curse didn't need magic. It didn't need an inscription. The tomb had been armed with a biological booby trap from the very beginning. The real assassin wasn't a pharaoh's ghost. It was a microscopic fungus, a silent killer that had waited 3 millennia to claim its first victim. And so, the mystery of the curse reveals itself to be a tale of 2 phantoms. The first was a ghost story, a supernatural avenger conjured from coincidence and sensational headlines. It was a thrilling, romantic, and ultimately, a comforting lie. The second phantom was real, a microscopic assassin, patient and silent, armed with the potent weapons of biology. The curse of the pharaohs may have been a myth, but the idea of a tomb protecting itself with a silent biological weapon is, in some ways, even more terrifying. We are left to wonder, what other ancient and deadly secrets still lie buried, waiting for the curious to break the seal? What do you think is the real curse of King Tut's tomb? Let us know your theory in the comments below. If you believe these complex stories from our past deserve to be remembered, you can help us keep them alive by liking this video and subscribing to While History Sleeps for more deep dives into the dark corners of the past. Until next time, stay curious.